It's time to present Scott DuPont to bring you another episode of Finance Your Movie with tips and strategies to help you get your money to tell your story. It's time!
I'm back with producer Scott J. Jones, veteran producer, 50 plus films. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Thank you very much.
So we're going to talk in just a few minutes here about your latest release, now out, called A Rocky Mountain Affair. I want to give a quick shout out to Andrea at AMCK for introducing us. But welcome to the show, Scott.
Thank you very much.
So 50 plus films, I'm impressed, but I want to take the audience, and I don't know this, we're all learning here. You started as an executive producer in the late 1980s. Tell us how you got into the movie business.
Well, if I dare, I'm going to take you back even a little bit earlier. Just through a lot of good luck, I actually got involved in the video store business and opened the fourth store in the city that I'm from in Canada in December 1981. So
Wow. What was that, an
yeah.
independent or a chain?
Oh yeah, no, it was an independent, and had a fantastic business partner. And we in that next year we opened four stores in 8 months, and were knee deep into VHS and beta tapes. And
Wow.
that was the original baptism into the business. And then, funny enough, we were building the stores, and we sort of had a business plan of building up stores and selling them, because the video store business was a great ma and pa business. So besides the Blockbusters and Hollywoods of the world, as we know, there was tons of independents. And so that was a big part of our business. And then one of the companies that I was buying my product from, I got a crazy call one day from owner of a wholesaler and said, I need to open a warehouse in another city. Can you help me? And I had, was young and had the ability to kind of do what I wanted to do. So I found myself in the wholesale business for a number of years. And then in 1988, some people approached me about producing movies. And I executive produced my first two movies in 1988.
Awesome. And what does that mean for the audience? Does that mean you put together the project, or you found the funding, or you put together the funding?
Both. Some filmmakers came to me and said, we understand you know a lot about the video business and distribution, which is really what the wholesale business was. And they said, we're filmmakers, we really want to make movies. So we put a business plan together, and we were fortunate enough to get some independent investors involved that were actually in the oil business. And they funded the first two movies I was involved with, which was, my whole background was really sales and marketing, less about creative and production and more about the marketing side of things.
Do you remember the budgets on those first films?
They were both under $1 million. One was 750 and the other one was 850.
Okay, so you're trying to raise $750,000. You just reached out to some gas and oil guys saying, "Hey, I got this movie. You want to take a look at it?"
Yeah. In some ways, compared the film business to wildcat oil drilling. It was like, we're going to try to do everything right, and we're going to, hand on our hearts that we've done our homework and we know what the audience wants, but there's no ultimate guarantees. Sometimes, you really believe in a project, and once you sort of, for no better term, get the horse out of the barn, it just doesn't run. So we had some people that were willing to take the risk with us. And the real interesting point at that in my career was, all of a sudden I had these two movies that we'd completed, but I had no international experience. So I had to come to LA with, not literally, but these two movies under my arm, going, how am I going to get these sold and get these guys their money back, when I really didn't know the international side of things. So I first attended the Cannes Film Festival in 1988 and started to learn a lot about the overall world of entertainment versus just US and Canada. So
Awesome. And quick little trivia fact, if you can drop for our audience, what was the dollar amount that you paid for a single VHS tape in your store if it was a hit title like a Tom Cruise movie back then?
The initial movies were costing $100 per tape.
Amazing.
Yeah,
When I
between
first heard that, I'm like,
85 and
wow.
85 and $100. And we used to rent VHS machines because nobody had VHS, this was the beginning of the video industry. And we would buy Hitachi play only, no visual fast forward or rewind, just basic play only VCRs to rent out, and they were $1,000 a machine. The same
Wow.
machine you could buy in Walmart today for $69
If
retail.
you can even find one.
Yeah, and by the way, the one that you found in more would have, every whistle and bell and remote, and even these machines, the only remote some of them had was like an actual cord that it was not a it was
Yeah.
it was pretty
So
funny.
so fast forwarding, I noticed later on in your career, your IMDb timeline, you actually produced a few films. Were you involved in helping put those together or helping raise a little bit of the money?
Um, it varies, because my main business, the company Artist View Entertainment, is a domestic and international distributor. Over the years, I built up a lot of relationships with different producers. I have one of my oldest relationships is with a gentleman in Rutland, Vermont, of all places, and we've done 18 films together. And the sort of polite joke between us as we've become friends over the years was I don't show up on his movie set and tell him where to put the camera, and he doesn't show up at my film market and tell me how to fill out deal memos. So there's plenty of work for everybody,
Now is he a money guy or just a guy helping you with distribution?
No, he's just an independent producer who, every once in a while makes his own film. You know, he has other businesses, and every once in a while he gets the bug and makes his own movie. But I have probably in excess of 15 production companies that I have at least three or more movies from, and a number of them that I have 10 or more films from. So the big thing is that, our goal as a company is, bring us your product, we'll manage the rights worldwide, make sure you get paid, and hopefully, you make enough money to make your investors happy and they let you do it again. So as a producer, if you get to do it again, then I get another movie. So it's not brain surgery. You just take care of people and make sure they get paid properly, and you get a lot of repeat business.
So you're speaking right now with a executive producer hat and a distributor hat on, kind of
Yeah.
wearing those two hats. Let's just say there was a filmmaker on listening right now and they have a great project. Do you ever do any initial financing, or is this something where people would have a finished film to share with you?
It's usually a finished movie, unless it's somebody that is a referral or is part of is already in the family. In other words, if I get a call saying, "Hey, I've got another project I want to do, and I've got the money in place," I'm happy to jump in and say, "Get me the script, and I'll give you my 2 cents worth on things that hey, in the beginning of this movie, you got to get rid of this scene, or, don't do this, or, hey, did you think about that?" Because I'm looking at the projects with a worldwide vision, not just and this is one of the things where young filmmakers get a little bit caught up in saying, well, I know what people want to see. Because I watch TV my whole life and I go to the movies, so I understand what's sellable. And in reality, you have to say, oh, but what about the person in Germany or the person in Japan or the person in Australia? And you have to be, sometimes one of the rejections that we'll get on a film is it's too American. So it's things like that where you try to share the information of um, or sorry, just the information of how to make it sellable. But another example is if something's too horrific, and horror is a big thing in the independent world, but you have to think that there's no more DVD or very little left in the world. And if you have something that's too gory, it can't play on free TV. You got to watch, language. There's just things that how do you make sure that you're hitting a worldwide audience and not just one that you're comfortable with because it's what you know, if that makes sense.
Yes. So being the guy sitting in your chair right now with all your wisdom, what would you tell a filmmaker? Like, what's a good budget range that somebody should do an independent film in today's world where it's going to go to streaming. You might get a little bit of DVD and then eventually AVOD and
Yeah.
fast channels. What's a good budget range where they can recoup and get money back to their investors?
Where we do really well is sort of in the 300 to 500 range. We handle movies that are done in the 150 to $250,000 range. The trick with talking about budgets is that you can give somebody $300,000 and they can give you a movie that looks like it was shot for $2 million. You know, somebody really
That's
is
the
taking
trick.
time. They get a good DP. They've prepped their project properly. And on the other hand, you can give the same amount of money to someone else and it comes out like a bad student film. So it's kind of tricky to say, what's the best budget because it depends also on the project and what genre it is. But if you get to a certain point, a lot of movies now are made non-union. Um, you're going to get to a point if you start spending north of that, especially 500, you better be looking at a SAG deal and looking at bringing in a recognizable name. It's every dollar that you spend on a recognizable name is the closest thing you have to insurance money.
Good point. Good
Yeah.
point. Um, let's talk about a Rocky Mountain Affair. How that project came together, since people can see it right now.
Yeah, I do a lot of work with the other executive producers on this, Josh Brandon and Peter Foldy, and we've done over 10 films together now. And I came up with an idea that I floated by them. I'm originally from Western Canada, grew up by the Rocky Mountains, and it was kind of a comedy of errors, but I also have a good friend who's an event planner. And she is very much a city girl. And I said, it'd be really funny to take like a fish out of water story where you take like an event planner, and all of a sudden she's lost in the middle of the beautiful Canadian Rocky Mountains. And that was sort of where the idea started. And then I reached out to a writer who I do quite a bit of work with in Western Canada named Steve Goldsworthy. And Steve's a really good writer, and he knows romantic comedies like the back of his hand. So we started off with this idea that we were going to get this fish out of water story, and take this young female character on the the ride of her life, literally, as far as going from not wanting to be anywhere near a horse, that by the end of it is an exceptional rider. So stuff like that. So
The
the
trailer grabbed
whole
me right away. I love the trailer. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm going to watch it later this week.
yeah.
So you probably didn't put the money together, but you got the idea, you got a killer script, you got this team that you've worked with 10 projects together. I'm assuming they put together the money. Any
Yeah.
ideas how they put together the money?
They it's been an ongoing relationship where the group of us, the three of us as executive producers, have been able to raise money and with a very specific program in mind. The majority of movies that I make with this group are either romantic comedies, like a Rocky Mountain Affair, or movies that are female-driven thrillers targeting the lifetime audience. So we go up to different investment groups that we put together and say that we're gonna do 4 or 5 movies. Uh, one or two of them are going to be romantic comedies. The other 3 or 4 are going to be female thrillers. Again, treating the business like a business, saying we know the product that there's room in the market to sell to. We know who our demographic is, and we know that within the scripts that we develop, that we're hitting all the right notes. Um, you know, it's very difficult to sell a thriller if nothing thrilling happens for the first 30 or 40 minutes. It's hard to sell a romantic comedy if it's not if it's not romantic or comedic, it's like, so seems like common sense, but it's funny when you see some of the product that comes in where um, we've just really worked hard in-house to develop uh, projects that we can put in front of money people, and they understand that here's how we're going to spend the money, but this is also where we're going to get it back.
So you literally have like a mini slate,
Yes,
and then they're investing in the slate of 4 or 5 films.
correct. Yeah.
Okay. Um, whether you're doing a slate or whether you're doing a single film, you touched on something. How important is understanding the demographics, understanding the audience and the market?
It's everything. This is, I sometimes jokingly say to people, we're we're working in the film business, but every once in a while you have to talk about the second word. It's and this is where, a lot of people that have great opportunities blow it, because if you're talking about any other business, it's like Nike doesn't go into the back of their factories and throw a bunch of material at some sewing machine people and say, here, make some shoes. You know, it's like any other business. The film business, you have to think about, you're developing a project and who's the end user, what age group, and that's no different than any other research and development part of any organization or any industry. Um, but we get caught up in, but that's not my vision. And it's tricky with our business, because sometimes somebody, is stubborn and they're going to have their vision and they turn around and win Sundance, because that's the beauty of our business. I worked, or I used to speak at a university where the professor one night would have a uh, an evening where the topic was art versus commercial. And if you're going to make your first movie, should you make an art film and go after the festival circuit, or should you make a commercial film? And my stand was always, you want to make a commercial film, because if you make a commercial movie and you get the investors their money back, you get to do it again. The
Exactly.
argument is, if you have a film that does very well on the festival circuit and you're recognized, it could put you in, I have one of my producers, he actually followed my formula, did 3 movies the joke was 3 movies for me, 1 for him. And he made 3 action movies that we did extremely well with. And then he gave me a script that I was like, I have no idea how to sell this. Straight out, it was basically about 2 ambulance drivers that were heroin addicts. And if you ever get a chance to see the movie, it's called Broken Vessels. It was a great film, but it was full of things that you just wouldn't have in the typical commercial world. And sure enough, he won the Hollywood Film Festival and got a
Wow.
multi-picture deal with Miramax. So
Wow.
yeah. So it was a great story. So he pleased his investors with the first 3, had enough money to make the one that he really wanted to make, and it helped him with his career. So
So
it's
circling back real quick to a Rocky Mountain Affair,
yeah,
you knew right away that this was going to be kind of a family friendly Lifetime Hallmark type of movie,
yes, absolutely.
and that's where
And
you
that was,
dial it in.
yeah, the key was that hallmark flavor. And that comes right down to, like, even the way it was shot. Spiro Grant, who was the DP on the movie, we talked before, and he understood how colorful and bright and fun it needed to be. That was like, you're not out in the mountains, surrounded by all this beautiful nature and trying to make something that's looks like a thriller. You want it to be bright and colorful. So all of those little pieces, like even wardrobe wise, we were really specific about, you know, it had to be the costumes had to be colorful, because it's a colorful, fun movie. So,
I noticed that about some Lifetime Hallmark movies. Even if it's not a Christmas movie, they have lots and lots of colors. I never thought about that.
yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
Even right down to hair design. But we politely, laugh about, you watch a Hallmark movie and, your lead actress gets up in the morning and she looks like she's ready to go for dinner. Her hair's done and she looks fantastic. That's the brand. So, and you respect the brand because it's amazing how well it works.
Wow. Great advice. So
Yeah.
Scott, if someone had a finished film, what would be the best way to contact you or submit a film? Do you look at films outside of the family occasionally?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. We take in submissions all the time. The um, email is sales@artistviewent.com. Um, and the Rachel, who oversees our acquisitions, she looks at everything, and if something looks good, then she passes it on. So probably, to be honest, half of our slate is, really in-house productions working with the family of producers, but we're always looking for new people to start relationships with.
Awesome. Awesome. So hopefully some audience members in the next few months, next year, we'll have some finished films. Scott's definitely and Rachel are people to definitely keep in mind. Um, any parting words of advice for someone doing their first or their second film in raising the money? Because you
Um,
know that world, um, and that's always the toughest challenge is where do you find the money?
yeah, well, it's not only to find the money, but the project has to be in good shape before you go after the money. And that's, that's
Clarify that if you could.
well, it's just, again, we'll go back to the saying about it's like any other business, which basically, what's the project? What's the budget? Where's the money being spent? Are you also looking at working in an area where you could get potential tax rebates? Um, for example, we shot this Rocky Mountain Affair. We shot it in Alberta, Canada, where there's a 30% all spend tax credit, which means everything that we spent, whether it was cameras, catering, lodging, you name it. As long as it was an Alberta-based company that we were paying, the Alberta government gave us 30% back on every dollar we spent. And so if you think about it and you're talking about that $450,000 movie for easy math, and you spend it all there, then you're looking at already getting $150,000 back from a tax rebate, and your investors already have a third of their risk covered.
ROI, a third
So,
recoupment.
so it's things like that. And then it's not easy for a producer to get numbers. And, in this day and age, it's very interesting as far as the value of projects, not only here, but internationally, because there's been such a pivot, especially since COVID to, so much of our independent world is I call it a per click world.
Yeah.
Because we're depending so much on the Amazons and Tubies and Zumos, and can go on and on of all the different platforms, Google Plays and iTunes and whatever. So it's hard to know exactly what the numbers are. You can't. It wasn't like the good old days where DVD. You knew that you were going to manufacture 10,000 units, and you knew what you're going to sell them for. This is a little bit more difficult, but what you want to do is see if you can find some comparables and see if you can get some information to say, hey, well, I know that this company did this rom-com, and it did X number of dollars, or kind
Yeah.
of work from there.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
the other thing too is that they have, which I think is really important, is filmmakers need to understand that timeline uh, is not like selling a pair of shoes. Keep in mind that even if I had a finished movie today and say Showtime wanted to buy it, they're scheduling 6 to 8 months out right now. So even if I said, hey, guess what? I got your movie a Showtime deal, we have to wait until it fits into a schedule. And by the time it finishes the schedule, you might not get paid until or part of your payments might not come until after it airs. So 6 months to 12 months can get eaten up very quickly from the time you actually deliver the movie to a distributor and you start to see money. It can very easily is not going to come in the next quarter. You're looking at 3 or 4 quarters out before you're going to see revenue.
I agree 100%. It's so important to set those expectations with your investors up front, so they're
Yeah.
not, calling you, what's going on with the money,
Yeah. Well, even if you're trying to run it through, the TVOD transactional world, and that may only be 90 days depending on how it's going. And then if you're lucky, let's say you get an SVOD deal in subscriber base, that's going to tie up the movie for, it could be a year and a half. And then from there, you're into AVOD. And all of a sudden you're talking, hey, 3 or 4 years have gone by, and the movie's, just making its way onto different roads of distribution.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. You might get super, super lucky and get an upfront pickup. It's very rare for an independent film, but it happens.
Yep.
But I say like 3 years or so is a good window where most of your money should come in, maybe 3 or 4 years.
I think that's a great advice. You're
And,
absolutely
and
right.
like the oil and gas business, because I've got a client right now that's talking to some gas and oil people in Texas, people he knows. He's saying, hey, we don't know if we're going to strike it rich. We don't know how many people are going to turn on the faucet. But the one thing about movies that you guys can understand is once that movie's out, it's just like a well, it's going to be producing revenues for years and years and years to come.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, even the movies that I produced back in the late '80s, they're still in my catalog, and we still, even though they were, originally were dealing with 1-inch masters or whatever, we were able to up-res them enough that, we get them out on YouTube channels, and why not? And we don't know. That's the great thing about the entertainment business. We know it's not going away. It's just trying to figure out what's it going to look like next.
So
So
you have a YouTube channel, and if you get enough views, it's acting like an AVOD platform. So you're monetizing the ads.
yeah.
Awesome.
Which, if you think about it, full circle, it's basically free TV.
Yeah, 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 and you get the ad revenue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
awesome. Scott, what's the best place that people can follow you? Do you have any social media or reach your company, Artist View Entertainment?
Yeah, we have Instagram and Facebook under Artist View Entertainment.
Okay. Go see A Rocky Mountain Affair. I saw the trailer. It looks awesome. Congratulations, Scott, on another film in the can and released. And thanks for being on the show.
Thanks very much. Appreciate the support.
It's time!
There's never been a better time to make your own film. And if you have a dream project you're excited about and 100% committed to getting it funded, go to financeyourmovie.com, click on the green telephone, you'll see our calendar and find an open spot. We'll do a one-on-one call, which will be the best hour you've ever spent getting clarity and strategy towards financing your movie.